The galaxy's deadliest predators were terrified until they met a human zookeeper. The Broken Hunters. The Last Hope. The Interstellar Conservation Center orbited the frozen moon of Keltara, a massive facility dedicated to saving endangered species from across the galaxy. Its white walls gleamed against the darkness of space, housing over 300 different life forms. Each one was precious. Each one was dying. But none were as close to extinction as the Vrax. Director Nell stood in the observation deck, his forearms crossed in frustration. Through the reinforced glass, he could see the containment habitat designed specifically for the galaxy's most feared predators. It was empty. Not because the Vrax weren't there, they were hidden in the darkest corners, refusing to emerge, refusing to eat, refusing to live. How long has it been? Nell asked the lead xenobiologist beside him. Dr. Saratha's scales rippled with worry, a nervous gesture of her species. 18 days since they've eaten. 12 days since they've moved from their hiding spots. At this rate, we'll lose all 6 within the month. Nell's mandibles clicked in distress. The Vrax were apex predators from the death world of Vraxia Prime. They stood 3 meters tall, with obsidian black fur, 6 powerful legs, and jaws that could crush titanium. They had ruled their planet for millions of years, feared by everything that lived there. But 6 months ago, their world had been destroyed by a cosmic catastrophe. These 6 Vrax were all that remained of their entire species. And they were dying of something no one had anticipated: grief. The impossible challenge. We've tried everything, Dr. Saris said, her voice heavy with defeat. We've replicated their exact atmospheric conditions, their food sources, their day-night cycles. We've introduced environmental stimuli, played recordings of their native wildlife, even adjusted the gravity to match their homeworld. And nothing works, Nell finished. Nothing. They won't hunt. They won't eat. It's like they've given up. Nell had seen this before in other rescued species. The loss of their world, their families, their purpose, it broke something inside them that medicine couldn't fix. The Vrax weren't dying from lack of food. They were dying from lack of hope. What do we do? Nell asked quietly. We can't let the last Vrax die on our watch. Dr. Sarith pulled up a holographic display. I've been researching other facilities, looking for anyone who's successfully rehabilitated traumatized apex predators. And I found something interesting. She projected an image: a small facility on Earth, a human conservation center specializing in large predators. They have a specialist there. Someone with an unusual success rate with animals others have given up on. Nell studied the image. A human? You want to bring a human here? Her name is Dr. Maya Okonkwo. She's worked with Earth's most dangerous predators: tigers, bears, crocodiles, creatures that by all accounts should be impossible to rehabilitate. And she's saved every single one. Humans are soft species, Nell said doubtfully. They have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength. How could one possibly help the Vrax? I don't know, Dr. Sarith admitted. But we're out of options. Either we try something different, or we watch the last Vrax die. What do you want to tell the Galactic Conservation Council when that happens? Nell was silent for a long moment, watching the empty habitat. Finally, he nodded. Contact her. Offer whatever it takes to bring her here. The human arrives. 2 weeks later, Maya Okonkwo stepped off the transport shuttle and into the conservation center. She was in her early 40s, with dark skin, close-cropped hair, and eyes that had seen too much suffering to be easily impressed. She wore simple work clothes, cargo pants, a sturdy jacket, and boots that had clearly seen years of use. Nell greeted her at the docking bay, trying not to show his skepticism. She was small by galactic standards, barely reaching his lower shoulder. She looked fragile. Dr. Okonkwo, he said, extending his upper right hand in the human greeting he'd researched. Thank you for coming. Maya shook his hand firmly. Call me Maya. And you can thank me after we save them. Nell led her through the facility, explaining the situation as they walked. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression focused and thoughtful. "You've done everything right technically," she said when he finished. "Perfect environment, perfect food, perfect conditions. But you're missing something crucial." "What?" "Purpose. Predators don't just need food and shelter. They need a reason to hunt, to live, to keep going. You've given them a perfect cage, but a cage is still a cage." Nell's mandibles twitched with irritation. "We're trying to save their species. What else would you suggest?" Maya stopped walking and looked at him. "Let me meet them first. Then we'll talk." First contact. The containment habitat was massive, half a kilometer across, designed to mimic the Vraxian wilderness with artificial trees, rock formations, and running water. But as Maya stepped inside through the keeper's entrance, the emptiness was overwhelming. Nell and Dr. Sareth watched from the observation deck as Maya walked slowly into the habitat. She carried nothing, no weapons, no protective gear, no translation device. Just herself. "This is insane," Nell muttered. "If they decide to attack, then we'll have learned they're not completely broken." Maya's voice came through the comm system. "Because right now, they're too depressed to be dangerous." She moved deeper into the habitat, her steps deliberate but unhurried. She was looking for something, scanning the shadows, reading signs that Nell couldn't see. After 15 minutes, she stopped near a cluster of artificial rocks. "There," she said softly. "In the cave behind me. 2 of them." Nell checked the sensors. She was right. How had she known? Maya sat down on the ground, cross-legged, her back to the cave. She didn't look at the Vrax. She just sat there, completely still, completely vulnerable. "What is she doing?" Dr. Sareth whispered. "I have no idea," Nell admitted. An hour passed. Then 2. Maya didn't move. She simply sat, breathing steadily, showing no fear, no aggression, no expectation. Just presence. And slowly, impossibly, something stirred in the cave behind her. The first response. A massive head emerged from the darkness, black as space, with 6 eyes that glowed faintly red. The Vrax was enormous, even larger than the records had suggested. Its lips pulled back, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. Nell's hand moved toward the emergency controls. One word from him and sedation protocols would activate, saving Maya but possibly breaking the Vrax permanently. But Maya's voice stopped him. "Don't," she said calmly. "He's not attacking. He's investigating." The Vrax moved closer, its 6 legs moving with predatory grace despite weeks of inactivity. It circled Maya slowly, sniffing the air around her. She didn't turn to look at it. She didn't flinch. "How do you know it won't attack?" Nell asked, his voice tight. "Because predators don't waste energy on things that aren't threats and aren't food. Right now, I'm interesting. That's better than being invisible." The Vrax completed its circle and sat down 3 meters away from Maya, its massive form settling onto the ground. It watched her with those glowing eyes, head tilted slightly. Maya finally turned to look at it. "Hey there, beautiful," she said softly. "I know. I know it hurts. I know everything's gone. I know you don't see the point anymore." The Vrax made a sound, low, rumbling, somewhere between a growl and a whine. "Yeah," Maya said. "I hear you." She slowly reached into her jacket pocket. Nell tensed, but she only pulled out a small piece of dried meat, something from Earth, not the synthesized food the facility had been providing. She tossed it gently toward the Vrax. It landed halfway between them. The predator looked at the food, then at Maya, then back at the food. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Vrax leaned forward and sniffed the meat. Its tongue flicked out, tasting it. And then, for the first time in 18 days, it ate. Understanding grief. Nell was waiting when Maya emerged from the habitat 4 hours later. That was the most reckless thing I've ever witnessed, he said, his voice sharp with suppressed fear. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, Maya said calmly. And now we know they're not ready to die yet. They're just waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to acknowledge their loss. For someone to sit with them in their grief. For someone to show them that surviving isn't betraying the ones they lost. Dr. Sereth approached, her scales bright with excitement. The readings are incredible. The Vraks you contacted, his heart rate normalized. His stress hormones dropped by 40%. And he ate. Dr. Okonkwo, how did you do that? Maya sat down on a nearby bench, exhaustion showing on her face for the first time. I worked at a tiger sanctuary back on Earth. We had a tiger named Raja who watched his entire family die during a poaching raid. For months, he wouldn't eat, wouldn't move, just laid in the corner of his enclosure waiting to die. What changed? Nell asked, genuinely curious now. I started sitting with him. Every day, for hours. I didn't try to make him feel better. I didn't try to fix him. I just sat with him in his grief. Let him know he wasn't alone. That his pain was real and valid. She looked up at Nell. Eventually, he started eating again. Started moving. Not because he forgot what happened, but because he learned he could carry that loss and still keep living. That surviving wasn't dishonoring the ones he'd lost, it was honoring them. Nella's understanding shifted. The Vraks aren't dying because they can't survive here. They're dying because they think they shouldn't. Exactly, Maya said. They're the last of their species. Every instinct is telling them they failed, that they should have died with their world. Someone needs to show them that being the last doesn't mean being wrong for living. The long work begins. Over the next week, Maya spent hours in the habitat each day. She learned each Vrax's personality, the alpha female who watched everything with wary intelligence, the younger male who was curious despite his grief, the old patriarch who seemed to carry the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. She didn't try to make them happy. She didn't pretend their world wasn't gone. She simply existed alongside them, showing them through her presence that grief and life could coexist. Slowly, they began to emerge from their hiding spots. First for minutes, then for hours. They started eating regularly, not the synthesized food, but real prey that Maya had the facility provide, teaching them to hunt again even in this artificial environment. Nell watched from the observation deck as Maya sat among 6 of the galaxy's deadliest predators, completely at ease, while they groomed each other nearby. It defied everything he knew about interspecies interaction. She's not training them, Dr. Sereth observed. She's grieving with them. And she was right. Maya had told them about her own losses, her parents in a shuttle accident, her mentor to disease, the countless animals she'd tried and failed to save over the years. She shared her pain, and in doing so, gave the Vraks permission to feel theirs. By the end of the second week, all 6 Vraks were eating, moving, and interacting with each other again. They weren't healed, grief didn't work that way. But they were living. And that was enough. Nell approached Maya one evening as she exited the habitat. I owe you an apology, he said. I doubted that a human could help them. Maya smiled tiredly. Most people do. Humans aren't the strongest or the fastest or the smartest species in the galaxy. But we're really, really good at one thing. What's that? Surviving loss. Humanity has been through extinctions, wars, plagues, disasters that should have ended us. But we're still here. Not because we're tough enough to never break, but because we learned how to keep going even when we're broken. She looked back through the observation window at the Vraks, now visible and active in their habitat. That's what they needed. Not someone who would fix them or save them. Someone who would show them that being broken doesn't mean being finished. The hunters awaken. A new challenge. 3 months after Maya's arrival, the Vraks were thriving in ways no one had thought possible. They hunted together, socialized, and had even begun playing rough, aggressive games that looked terrifying but were, Maya assured everyone, perfectly normal for apex predators. But Nell had called an emergency meeting, and Maya knew from his expression that something was wrong. "We have a situation," he said, pulling up a holographic display. "The Galactic Conservation Council has approved the Vrax breeding program." Maya nodded. "That's good news, isn't it? That's the whole point, to save the species." "Yes, but there's a complication." Nell zoomed in on another section of the display. "They've located 3 more Vrax. Survivors from a deep space mining colony that we didn't know existed. They're being transported here as we speak." "That's excellent," Maya said, not understanding the problem. 9 Vrax is better than 6. More genetic diversity. Dr. Sarah spoke up, her scales dark with concern. "The problem is their condition. These 3 Vrax were kept in isolation chambers by the mining company. Used as guards. Attack animals. They've been traumatized in completely different ways than our 6. She pulled up footage, and Maya felt her stomach turn. 3 Vrax, muzzled and chained, pacing endlessly in tiny cells. Their eyes were wild, filled not with grief but with rage and fear. "They're arriving in 2 days, Nell said. And we have no idea how to integrate them with the others. Traumatized predators meeting grief-stricken ones, it could be a disaster." Maya studied the footage carefully, her mind already working through the problem. "Have you told our 6 about the newcomers?" Nell's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Told them? They're animals. They're intelligent apex predators with complex social structures," Maya corrected. "And they're about to have their entire world disrupted again. They deserve to know why." Preparing the pack. That afternoon, Maya sat in the habitat with all 6 Vrax gathered around her. She'd brought a portable holographic projector, something she'd never used with them before. The alpha female, whom Maya had named Shadow, watched with intelligent eyes as Maya activated the device. The image of the 3 captive Vrax appeared, and the reaction was immediate. All 6 of her Vrax went rigid. Shadow's lips pulled back in a snarl. The young male, Storm, made a sound Maya had never heard before, something between a howl and a roar. Even the old patriarch, whom Maya called Elder, rose to his feet, his entire body tense. "I know," Maya said softly. "I know you can smell their pain in the images. I know you can see what was done to them." She zoomed in on the chains, the muzzles, the 2 small cells. "They're your people. The last of your kind. And they're coming here. They'll be angry. They'll be dangerous. They might even attack you, because that's all they know how to do anymore." Shadow moved closer to Maya, her massive head lowering until they were eye to eye. The predator made a questioning sound. "Yes," Maya said, somehow understanding. "I need your help. I can't reach them alone. They're too far gone. But you survived loss. You learned to live again. Maybe you can show them how." For a long moment, Shadow simply stared at her. Then the alpha female turned to the other 5 Vrax and made a series of sounds, complex, varied, clearly communicating something. The others responded, their body language shifting from aggression to something else. Something that looked almost like determination. Maya smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know this is asking a lot. But you're the only ones who can help them." The arrival. 2 days later, the transport ship docked. Nell had arranged for the 3 new Vrax to be placed in a separate containment area, a temporary habitat that could be sealed off from the main enclosure. They couldn't risk an immediate confrontation. Maya watched through the observation window as the newcomers were released into their temporary space. They were smaller than her 6, underfed and underdeveloped from years of captivity. But their aggression was terrifying. The moment they were free of their restraints, they attacked everything in sight, the walls, the equipment, even each other. They were pure rage, all survival instinct and no trust. "They're feral," Dr. Sarah said quietly. "I don't think even you can reach them, Maya." Not alone, Maya agreed. But I'm not alone anymore. She activated the communication system. Shadow, are you ready? In the main habitat, Shadow raised her head and roared, a sound that shook the observation deck and sent shivers down Maya's spine. It was answered immediately by the other 5, creating a symphony of predator calls that echoed through the entire facility. And in their temporary habitat, the 3 traumatized Vraks went completely still. Pack recognition. What just happened? Nell asked, staring at the frozen newcomers. Shadow just told them they're not alone, Maya said. That there are others. Pack. Family. She turned to Nell. Open the barrier between the habitats. Just a small opening, enough for sound and scent, but not enough for physical contact yet. That's incredibly risky. Everything about this is risky, Maya interrupted. But those 3 down there have never heard their own kind before. They've never smelled a pack, never felt the presence of others like them. Right now, they're discovering they're not the only ones left. Nell hesitated, then nodded to the control technician. A small panel slid open between the 2 habitats, just 30 centimeters across, but enough. The effect was immediate. The 3 traumatized Vraks rushed to the opening, their noses pressed against the gap, breathing deeply. From the other side, Maya's 6 approached slowly, their body language calm but assertive. Shadow was the first to reach the barrier. She pressed her massive head against the opening and made a sound, low, resonant, complex. Not aggressive. Not submissive. Something else entirely. One of the traumatized Vraks, a scarred male Maya would later name Fighter, responded with a sound that might have been a whimper. His aggression had vanished, replaced by something that looked heartbreakingly like hope. She's telling them they're safe, Maya whispered. That the torture is over. That they're with Pack now. The long integration. The integration took weeks. Maya didn't rush it. She opened the barrier wider each day, allowing more interaction but always maintaining some separation until she was sure no one would be seriously hurt. Shadow took the lead, as Maya knew she would. The alpha female had lost her entire pack on Vraxia Prime, her mate, her cubs, her extended family. These 3 traumatized newcomers weren't replacements, but they were her species. They were what remained. And Shadow was determined they would survive. She taught them to hunt again, not attack, hunt. There was a difference. She showed them how to play, how to communicate, how to exist as part of a pack rather than as isolated weapons. The young male, Storm, bonded particularly strongly with Fighter. They were close in age, and Storm seemed to understand Fighter's anger in ways the others didn't. Maya often found them wrestling, rough, aggressive, but never truly violent. Storm was teaching Fighter that aggression could be channeled into play, into bonding, into something other than survival. Elder took the 2 smaller newcomers under his protection. They were both females, Maya named them Hope and Dawn, and they'd been the most traumatized, the most withdrawn. But Elder was patient. He groomed them, shared his food with them, and slowly taught them that touch didn't have to mean pain. Maya spent every day in the habitat with all 9 Vraks, watching the pack form, helping where she could, but mostly just being present. Being witness to their healing. The breakthrough. The breakthrough came on a quiet afternoon 3 months after the newcomers' arrival. Maya was sitting against a rock formation, making notes on a datapad, when she heard something that made her freeze. Laughter. Not human laughter, but the Vrak's equivalent, a chuffing, rumbling sound that she'd only heard a few times before. She looked up to see all 9 Vraks playing together in the stream that ran through the habitat. They were splashing, tackling each other, rolling in the water like cubs. Even Fighter, the most traumatized of the newcomers, was participating, his scarred body moving with a freedom Maya had never seen before. Shadow caught Maya watching and made eye contact across the habitat. The alpha female's expression, if such a thing could be read on an alien predator, was something like pride. "We did it," Maya whispered. "You did it." Nella's voice came through her calm. "Maya, you need to see this." She reluctantly left the habitat and met him in the observation deck. He was pulling up biological scan data, and his expression was a mixture of shock and excitement. "What is it?" Maya asked. "Hope is pregnant," Nell said. "And so is Dawn. And Shadow." Maya's breath caught. "All three?" "The males must have, we didn't even notice the breeding behaviors. They happened so naturally, so quietly." Nell turned to her, his four eyes bright. "Maya, we're going to have Vrax cubs. The species is going to survive." Maya felt tears prickling her eyes. "They chose to live," she said softly. "They chose to have a future. The ultimate test." But their celebration was short-lived. An emergency alert flashed across the facility's systems, and Nell's expression shifted immediately to concern. "What's wrong?" Maya asked. "The Galactic Conservation Council is sending an inspection team. They want to evaluate the Vrax breeding program." He hesitated. "And they want to determine if the predators are safe enough for eventual reintroduction to a wild preserve." "That's good, isn't it?" Nell's mandibles clicked nervously. "The inspection team is led by Director Vorn. He doesn't believe in rehabilitation of apex predators. He thinks traumatized animals should be euthanized, not saved. If he decides the Vrax are too dangerous, they'll be killed," Maya finished, her voice hard. "After everything they've survived, everything they've overcome, he'll kill them because he's afraid." "His evaluations are final," Nell said. "There's no appeal." Maya looked back through the observation window at the 9 Vrax. Shadow was grooming Fighter. Storm and Elder were playfighting near the stream. Hope and Dawn were resting in the sun, their bodies already showing subtle signs of pregnancy. They were a pack. A family. The last of their kind, choosing to live, choosing to hope, choosing to build a future from the ashes of their past. "When does he arrive?" Maya asked. "Tomorrow." Maya nodded slowly. "Then we have one night to prepare. Because I am not letting anyone kill my pack." The inspection. Director Vorn was exactly what Maya had feared, cold, clinical, and convinced that predators were nothing more than dangerous animals to be managed or eliminated. He was a Viridian, a species known for their logical minds and complete lack of emotional consideration. "Dr. Okonkwo," he said as they met at the observation deck, his translator rendering his clicks into flat, emotionless standard speech. "I've read your reports. Quite imaginative. But rehabilitation of apex predators is a fantasy that costs lives." "With respect, Director," Maya said, keeping her voice calm, "these Vrax have shown no aggression toward any staff member. They're forming natural pack bonds. 3 females are pregnant. They're succeeding." "Success," Bourne said, "is measured by safety, not sentiment. I will observe these predators directly. If they show any signs of danger, I will recommend immediate termination of the program." He moved toward the habitat entrance. Nell moved to stop him, but Maya put a hand on his arm. "Let him," she said quietly. "Shadow needs to meet him." "Maya, if they attack him." "They won't," Maya said with more confidence than she felt. "Trust them." "Trust me." Pack protection. Bourne entered the habitat with full protective gear, flanked by armed guards. He moved like someone expecting to be attacked at any moment, his body language radiating fear disguised as authority. The Vrax noticed immediately. All 9 heads turned toward the entrance, their bodies going still and alert. Maya followed Vorn in, waving the guards to stay back. "Just observe," she said to the director. "Don't approach them. Let them come to you if they choose." "Predators don't choose," Bourne said dismissively. "They act on instinct." Shadow was already moving toward them, her massive form gliding across the habitat with predatory grace. Behind her, the other 8 followed, forming a loose semicircle around the newcomers. Bourne backed up slightly, his hand moving toward a weapon at his belt. "They're displaying pack hunting behavior," he said, his voice tight. This is exactly the danger I was warning about. No, Maya said calmly. They're displaying pack protection behavior. There's a difference. She stepped forward, separating herself from Vorn and the guards. Shadow immediately moved to her side, pressing her massive body against Maya's. It wasn't aggression. It was guarding. The Vraks aren't hunting you, Maya explained. They're protecting me. Because I'm part of their pack now. Storm moved next, positioning himself between Maya and Vorn. Then Elder. Then Fighter. One by one, all 9 Vraks formed a protective barrier around Maya, their message clear: she was theirs, and they would allow no harm to come to her. Vorn stared at the display, his logical mind clearly struggling to process what he was seeing. This is unprecedented, he admitted. Apex predators don't bond with other species. They don't protect. They don't care, Maya finished. That's what you think. But you're wrong. Predators are complex social animals. They form bonds. They feel grief and joy and hope. They choose who they protect. She reached out and rested her hand on Shadow's massive head. The alpha female leaned into the touch, making a soft rumbling sound. These Vraks aren't dangerous because they're predators, Maya said. They're dangerous because they're traumatized. But trauma can be healed. Trust can be rebuilt. And when you give beings, any beings, a reason to live, they choose life. The decision. Vorn was silent for a long moment, watching the Vraks watch him. Finally, he spoke, his voice subdued. I came here expecting to find dangerous animals that needed to be eliminated. What I'm seeing is something else entirely. You're seeing survivors, Maya said. The same as every species in this facility. They're not perfect. They're not tame. But they're alive, and they want to stay that way. Isn't that what conservation is supposed to be about? Vorn looked at her, then at the Vraks, then back at her. You've done something I thought was impossible, Dr. Okonkwo. You've given traumatized apex predators not just the ability to survive, but the desire to. That is remarkable. He pulled out a datapad and began entering information. I'm recommending the program continue. Full funding. And I'm recommending that you remain as their primary caregiver indefinitely. Maya felt relief wash through her. Thank you, Director. Don't thank me. Thank them. He gestured to the Vraks. They're the ones who chose to trust you. That trust is what saved their species. 6 months later. The first Vraks cubs were born on a quiet morning, 3 from Shadow's litter, 2 from Hope's, and 2 from Dawn's. 7 tiny, squirming predators who knew nothing of destroyed worlds or trauma or loss. They only knew their pack, their mothers, and the strange human who sat with them every day, showing them that different species could care for each other. Maya sat in the habitat, exhausted but happy, as the cubs stumbled over her lap. Shadow watched from nearby, calm and trusting, while the other adults took turns playing with or guarding the young ones. Nell approached Maya in the observation deck after she'd finished her shift. The council wants to know if you'll consider working with other traumatized species. Your methods have attracted attention across the galaxy. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking. I'll consider it. But I'm not leaving the Vraks. They're my pack now. Nell's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. I wouldn't dream of separating you. But Maya, what you've proven here, that trauma can be healed, that apex predators can choose trust over fear, that a human could bridge the gap between species we thought were too dangerous to save, it's revolutionary. It's not revolutionary, Maya said softly, watching Shadow nuzzle one of her cubs. It's just what happens when you give beings a chance to heal. When you sit with them in their pain and show them they're not alone. When you believe they're worth saving. She smiled as one of the cubs, a tiny female with Storm's curious nature, wobbled over to the observation window and pressed her nose against the glass, staring at Nell with wonder. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way, Maya continued. We've been the traumatized species. We've been the ones everyone gave up on. We've been broken and angry and dangerous. But we survived because someone, somewhere, always believed we were worth saving. And now you're passing that gift forward, Nell said. Now, Maya agreed, we're teaching the galaxy what humans learned a long time ago, that the strongest survivors aren't the ones who never break. They're the ones who learn to heal, to trust again, and to build something new from what was lost. She watched as Shadow gathered all 7 cubs together, the other adults forming a protective circle around them. The last of the Vraks, no longer dying, no longer just surviving, but living. Building a future. Choosing hope. That's humanity's real superpower, Maya said quietly. Not that we're tough enough to never need help. But that we're brave enough to offer it, especially to those who've lost everything. And in the habitat below, 9 adult Vraks and 7 cubs that represented the future of their species proved that lesson every day, that with patience, with compassion, and with the stubborn human refusal to give up on anyone, even the most broken beings could learn to live again. The end. Story message: healing from trauma isn't about being tough enough to handle it alone, it's about having someone willing to sit with you in your pain and show you that surviving isn't betraying those you've lost. Humans excel not at being invulnerable, but at understanding that being broken doesn't mean being finished.